What I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil. F them.
This is my video update on this Thursday afternoon, November the 30th. Let's talk about what is going on in the world today. And the big story is that Henry Kissinger has passed away at 100 years of age. That's it. Henry Kissinger has passed away. Some people say he was a war criminal, a warmonger, one of the original neocons. Other people have called him a peacemaker, a realist, a pragmatist. This is what the Washington Post is running with for their headline on Kissinger's passing. Henry Kissinger, who shaped world affairs under two presidents, dies at 100. So that is what the Washington Post is running with. Let me read you a tweet from Medvedev. This is what Medvedev said. Henry Kissinger has died. He has faithfully served his country for many years. At the same time, he was a pragmatist who took realities into consideration and not just followed the U.S. foreign policy canons. Now there aren't even traces of the people like him in the U.S. administration and the Western world. Rest in peace. So that was the Twitter X post from Dmitry Medvedev, who is basically saying in this post that, at least this is my interpretation of his post, as bad as Kissinger was, or as bad as people believed Kissinger was, depending on who you ask, but as bad as Kissinger was, at least he was a realist. At least you could conduct diplomacy with him. I think that's basically what Medvedev is saying. And then he's saying that there's no one like that in the collective West today. In the collective West, they're just all mad. And the problem with the collective West leadership is that they think they're smart when they're not. And they're dangerous. They think they're smart and they're dangerous and they're not realists. And Kissinger was he was dangerous, in my opinion. In my opinion, he was evil and he was dangerous, but he wasn't stupid. And at least you could talk to him. At least he did conduct diplomacy to a certain extent. He was a realist. Some people say that he was the realpolitik, the first U.S. Secretary of State who was anchored in realpolitik. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Kissinger and his passing away? I've read some analysis which say this is very symbolic. Kissinger's passing away is connected to the passing away of the U.S. as the unipolar power. I've read analysis along those lines as well. Anyway, let's discuss the other big story, what I think is the other big story, and that is Elon Musk's appearance at this New York Times event with Sorkin. Forgot what this guy's name is. I always think of Aaron Sorkin, the guy that writes all the TV shows, but that's not his name. I forgot his name. I want to say Edward Sorkin, and this is like a Deal Book Summit, the New York Times Deal Book Summit. Anyway, that's not important. What's important is that Elon Musk gave an interview to this New York Times event, and I think it was about an hour long, an hour 20 minutes. So Elon Musk talked about a lot of things, but the quote that is making the rounds is when Elon Musk told advertisers to F off. So this Sorkin guy, he asked Elon Musk about his trip to Israel and how many people perceived it as as an apology tour because of the tweets that Elon Musk retweeted or posted or whatever that the collective West media said were anti-Semitic, or Elon Musk was anti-Semitic, or Twitter was anti-Semitic. Anyway, I don't know. I haven't been really following that part of the story too closely. But this journalist asked Elon Musk if his trip to Israel was all part of an apology tour, going to Israel and trying to get some of the heat off of him with regards to this anti-Semitic narrative. And Elon Musk basically said to the advertisers, because the story is that advertisers like Disney said they're going to pull out of Twitter, advertising on Twitter, because of the far right leanings of Twitter and how Elon Musk allows this far right ideology to thrive on Twitter. And Elon Musk was like, go F yourselves, advertisers. He actually even mentioned Bob in reference to Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney. And Elon Musk was like, look, I'm not going to be, are you saying that I'm being blackmailed for money? And he's like, go F yourselves. That was pretty much his message. I can't be blackmailed, is what Elon Musk said. I'm not going to be blackmailed by these advertisers, so they can go F themselves. And the follow-up was actually more interesting, because Elon Musk then went on to talk about if advertisers pull out. Actually, the journalist, this Sorkin guy, he asked Elon Musk, well, if you tell advertisers like Disney to F off, well, how are you going to make money? How are you going to survive as a business? And Elon was, Elon was like, we're not. I mean, he was like, we're not. We're going to close down. And, I think the whole room was kind of like shocked. I think the CEO of Twitter was actually sitting in the audience as well. What's her name? Linda Yaccarino, I want to say. I forgot her name, Yaccarino. And she was like sitting like in the front row as well. And Elon's like, we're going to close. It's that simple. And the journalist, this guy was like, yeah, but I mean, everyone's gonna blame you or what? And he's like, no, they're gonna blame the advertisers. He's like, tell it to Earth, tell it to planet Earth. Anyway, take a look at the whole exchange, because the whole exchange was interesting. And Elon Musk basically saying, if we can't make money and if the advertisers pull out, well then, we're gonna close down. Twitter is got problems with this regard. I mean, they've got the subscription services, they've got the blue check marks. You can also buy the gold check mark, which is pretty expensive per month for like media companies or big companies. It's like $1,000 a month to get like the gold check mark or something like that. I forgot the price, but it's pretty hefty. And then you have the blue check mark, which is like $5 or $7 a month. So he's got these payment systems in place, but he's going to have to ramp up other payment revenue models. Build in some sort of e-commerce, maybe some sort of payment system, like you see in many apps in China or in Japan, where the app actually functions as a one-and-all kind of app, where you can actually pay for stuff with the app. I don't know. He's going to have to do stuff like that. Twitter's going to have to approach content creators. I think that's the key, in my opinion. Right now, you have the social, at least in the West, the model is you have the platform, the social network, then you have the advertiser, then you have the consumer or the content creator is what you really need to focus on, the content creator. So you always have the advertiser in the middle. And what Elon has to do is he has to make it so that Twitter and the content creator are in a partnership. And to do that, you have to approach the content creator and figure out a way for Twitter to make money and for the content creator to also make money, to also benefit. So you have to figure out what that's going to be. Subscription services are a logical first step, but you have to figure out other ways, other monetization systems, maybe a cryptocurrency or something. I don't know. E-commerce, you can do something there, where if the content creator promote certain e-commerce products or solutions, or you make it so that you can provide e-commerce solutions to the content creator. I don't know, but he's going to have to ramp that up. Otherwise, Twitter's going to have some problems. And then you have the whole App Store issue. Android, he's okay, because even if Google decides to cancel the Play Store, if they cancel Twitter, at least you can still use the APKs on Android. You can still install APKs on Android without having to go through the Play Store. But Apple can't do that on Apple, so that's going to be a problem. He's going to have to build a very, very good web app, like a very, very good cutting edge web app. Anyway, that's what Elon said. What I would have asked Elon at this event, I would have asked him one simple question. Why did you go to Israel? I would have asked him that question. Why did you go? I think that's the question to have asked him. And he could have given an answer, but a reasonable, rational answer. But he probably would have said, I wanted to see how things really are in Israel. It was a fact-finding mission. I wanted to be on the ground and get firsthand look at what's going on, because Twitter, at the end of the day, is all about citizen journalism. He probably would have said something along those lines. But my follow-up question would have been, well, then why didn't you go for an hour or two to Gaza? I understand the argument that it's dangerous, but I'm positive that if Elon's people, and we know he has people that organize this stuff, I'm positive that Elon's people could have spoken to Israel, to the Israeli authorities, as well as to Hamas or the people in Gaza that could organize something like this, maybe the NGOs, and I'm positive that they would have arranged something where it would have been safe for you to spend at least an hour in Gaza, so that it looks like you're being objective, because you're going to put out video and images and all this stuff is going to go on the interwebs of you being there. So it would have made a better impression if you had gone to Israel, fine, but if you had also spent some time in Gaza, so that you could come back to the US and say, I went and I got a full briefing, a full picture of what's happening. I think his Elon's PR team and the messaging was just not there. One day you woke up and he was in Israel, and everyone's like scratching their head. Everyone's like, how did he end up there? Why is he there? What's going on? And then everyone came out with their analysis, and they're trying to understand why Elon was there, and everyone gave their thoughts and opinions as to why Elon was there, including myself, because his PR team didn't get ahead of the story. They should have come out with a press release or announced the trip and said Elon's going for X, Y, and Z reasons, and at least they would have been able to control the narrative a bit. So I think this was a mess up on Elon's part with the messaging and just the overall communication of the trip. And I think it's put him in a difficult position. But I agree with him 100%. I agree with him 1,000%. Are they blackmailing him, the advertising companies? Absolutely. And I'm 100% in support of Elon to deal with the advertisers. How he has to deal with them, I don't know, but to try and figure out a way to make Twitter so that it's advertising proof, or at least it's not so dependent on big multinational advertisers. I think that's the real problem, the big multinational advertisers. He has to deal with that, and I support him 100% in trying to figure out a way as to how he can do that. Absolutely. So yeah, he's being blackmailed. Yeah, absolutely, he's being blackmailed. Yeah, blackmailed, strong-armed, whatever you want to call it. I think David Sachs put out a tweet and he said that Elon is being strong-armed, and I think that's a proper description of what the advertisers are trying to do to Elon and to Twitter. Absolutely, 100%. So good on Elon for being very, very open and honest in his statement and telling advertisers to F off. But my take on the Israel trip is that it wasn't prepared and handled. The messaging could have been a whole lot better. Anyway, the media is already digging into Elon. The Times, they put out a tweet saying Elon Musk has accused brands, including Apple, Disney, and IBM, of attempting to blackmail him after they pulled their advertising from the platform this month. accused brands of trying to blackmail him. No, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. All right, so let's move on to talk about Project Ukraine a bit. And we had this NATO meeting that took place, and we had some interesting comments from Stoltenberg. I had one of Stoltenberg's many comments as my video opener yesterday, and Stoltenberg said some pretty delusional stuff. You can really, you really understand how delusional these people are. Huh? They know that Ukraine is losing really, really bad. I mean, the front line is, I don't want to say it's collapsing, but the Russians are just annihilating the Ukraine military very methodically, very slowly. It's just across the entire front line. It's just a big catastrophe for the Ukraine military, and the troubling part, if you're Zaluzhny or Zelensky, one of these guys, or if you're NATO, Stoltenberg, is that the Russians haven't even started yet. They haven't even really shown what Russia can do. Russia still has 420,000 troops just sitting back there, and they probably have another 400,000 or 500,000 troops in back of the 420,000 troops. And Putin said it like 6 months ago. He said, we haven't even started yet. And he's right. Russia hasn't even started to really go hard in Ukraine. I don't even know if Russia's really going to ever go hard in Ukraine at this moment. So, I mean, if you're NATO and you're Zelensky, you should be very, very worried, because the entire front line of Devka, Bakhmut, it's all going terribly wrong. All the gains, the little tiny minuscule gains that Ukraine made during the 6 months of the counteroffensive, they're all being erased. Like the 0.05% of territory that Ukraine managed to get back in the 6 months of the big super duper counteroffensive, like Rapotino and whatever little villages they captured outside of Bakhmut. The Russians are just gaining all of that back now, and they're pushing further past those villages. A complete disaster. But what do you have Stoltenberg come out and say? He doesn't come out and say it's a disaster. He doesn't come out and say we're losing bad. He doesn't come out and say we need to find peace. We need to negotiate. We need to save whatever we can of Ukraine. By the way, Arestovich, he came out yesterday and he said that he was part of the negotiations. He saw what was going on in the negotiations in Istanbul, and Arestovich said that what the Russians offered Ukraine in Istanbul during those negotiations, he said the Russians offered a ton of concessions. He said the deal that the Russians put on the table was awesome. It was very beneficial for Ukraine. And he confirmed that the United States and the UK, they sabotaged that deal. They told Ukraine to fight on, and they told Zelensky, we'll give you all the money and all the weapons and everything you need to defeat Russia, and we'll put all these sanctions on Russia. And Arestovich came out yesterday and he said that the US and the UK, they screwed us over big time, and they promised us all these things. And he was like, we had a very, very good deal on the table in Istanbul. Like, the Russians were very fair. They were more than fair, he said. They gave us a ton of concessions. That's what Arestovich said. And granted, Arestovich is trying to angle his way into the president position, but still, at that time, he was Zelensky's BFF, and he was his closest advisor. So there must be some truth to what Arestovich said, and we know that this has been confirmed by David, what's his name, Arachamia as well, and other people have confirmed how Boris Johnson and the U.S. they completely sabotaged what would have been peace in March 2022. Anyway, you have Stoltenberg come out and say that instead of talking about peace and negotiations. Stoltenberg says that Ukraine has gained 50% of the territory that the Russians initially took, and Ukraine has pushed back the Russian Black Sea Fleet, and what else? And Ukraine won the siege of Kiev, the Great Kherson counteroffensive, and the Great Kharkiv counteroffensive. 3 counteroffensive, 3 battles, if you want to call them battles, that we know Ukraine won fictitiously, if that's even a word. Falsely, if that's even a word. There was no siege of Kiev. We know that as a fact. The Kherson counteroffensive, there was no such thing. There was no such battle. It was the Russians moving to a better defensive position, which the Russians then annihilated the Ukraine military that advanced into the part of Kherson that the Russians moved back from. I think the numbers were something like 20 or 25,000 Ukrainian military were annihilated as they were trying to move into the part of Kherson that the Russians left. And then you have the Kharkov counteroffensive, which was pretty much the same thing as the Kherson counteroffensive. The Russians just moved back to a better defensive line, better fortifications. And as Ukraine approached to gain territory, at least to make it seem like they were gaining territory, that they won this victory, the Russians rained down artillery and annihilated another 10 or 15 or 20,000 Ukraine soldiers. So, I mean, Stoltenberg is just delusional. He is absolutely delusional. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about Ukraine. He just wants to make sure that Ukraine continues to fight on in whichever way they can continue to fight on, mobilize women and old people and teenagers, so that when the collapse happens, it's not Stoltenberg that's sitting in the seat and blamed for it. That's what Stoltenberg cares about. There's these flyers going around. I don't know how real this is. This could be fake, but there are photos of flyers going around with pictures of like a guy with like a gray beard. And basically these flyers are saying, you know, you're not too old enough to go to the front line, or, you know, do your duty and go to the front line. And it's talking about like older men to go and fight. But I just want to say I can't confirm the authenticity of these flyers. So keep that in mind. But we do know that the average age of the soldier that is fighting is something like 43. Some people are now saying it's 53. Stoltenberg doesn't care. He just doesn't want to be the person that's blamed for the debacle of Ukraine while he's still the Secretary General, the top chief of NATO. So he'll do whatever he has to do to keep Ukraine afloat and to keep people fighting, and what effectively means to keep people dying. He doesn't care. But Lord Cameron, he was at this meeting of NATO foreign ministers. And this is what this is what the Telegraph is running with. We can outlast Russia in Ukraine, Lord Cameron tells NATO. Foreign Secretary urges Western allies to collectively increase weapons productions in order to help Kiev towards victory. Increase weapon production in order to help Kiev towards victory. What victory, Lord Cameron, are you talking about? What weapons production, Lord Cameron? Let's just make a deal with Lord Cameron. The UK go first. Hand over all the weapons that you're producing so you can help Ukraine to achieve this victory. Lord Cameron, the architect of the Libya debacle. What a clown. What a clown. And they call him a lord. He's a buffoon. But he doesn't care about Ukraine, that's for sure. And what did Ukraine get out of this meeting? They didn't get any indication that they're going to enter NATO. Nope. Actually, the reverse. The indication was that in the foreseeable future, at least, they have no way of entering NATO. What they did get, they got a promise of full interoperability. Full interoperability. Malakias is what they got. Malakias. Yeah. Full interoperability, which means that that with time, the Ukraine military is going to be 100% up to NATO standards. It's going to fight exactly the way NATO fights, which is fight like NATO, losing. Fight like NATO, losing. That's what they mean. But what military? The more this conflict goes on, there's going to be no military to be interoperable with NATO. But that's what they got. NATO interoperability. This has been a NATO proxy from the beginning of the conflict. So, I mean, it's nonsense. They got nothing. They got nothing. And Blinken was one of the foreign ministers, actually, who told Foreign Minister Kuleba that there's no chance of Ukraine entering NATO at this time. Blinken said, and I quote, "We reaffirm the commitment made in Vilnius that Ukraine will become a member of NATO when allies agree and conditions are met. Ukraine is well on the path of NATO as well as to the European Union with the accession process beginning." That's a direct quote from Blinken. A direct quote. The commitment made to Ukraine in Vilnius. Remember that Vilnius summit with Zelensky looking like in his green attire. His wife was having a great time. His wife was having a great time. And Zelensky looked all pissed off. All the memes of Zelensky standing there. Yeah, that's the promise that they made to Zelensky in Vilnius, and that's what he's getting at this NATO foreign ministers meeting, which is basically he's getting a big fat nothing, a big fat zero. Interoperability, that's what he's getting. And that's according to Blinken. And Annalena, 720i, she's freaking out because she's invested her entire career on Project Ukraine, and she sent out a warning, like a document, a warning to all of the ministers, the foreign ministers in attendance. And she said this: "The view of Ukraine is currently disappearing from the public. That is fatal. We all have to work to further extend the winter protection umbrella for Ukraine." It's fatal, according to Annalena 360. The support for Ukraine is fading. And she is saying it is fatal. She's flipping out. Annalena 720 is losing it. And Putin, he senses this. Putin senses this, and he basically calls, and I think he's referring to Annalena Baerbock, but he says that the leadership in Germany is a laughingstock. That's what Putin said. The president, Vladimir Putin, noted that either European countries are turning their backs on cheap energy on their own accord, or the decision-making is being done by their allies from the United States due to political reasons, according to Putin, who had maintained close working relationships with Berlin for most part of his political career. Kiev receives money from Europe, from Germany, while the gas they need from Russia has been cut off. The Germans swallow all this because they lack sovereignty. And some government leaders apparently lack sufficient professional skills to make adequate and professional decisions. Everyone knows who that is. They are being laughed at by the whole world. They are being laughed at by the whole world, says Vladimir Putin. Everyone knows who that is. Who is that? Baerbock, Schultz, Habeck. The Russian president is saying that the whole world is laughing at these three individuals, and he's 1,000% right. They laugh at the fact that Zelensky or Gilligan or the skipper or the Andromeda blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, and Schultz doesn't do anything about it. Everyone is laughing at that. They laugh at Annalena 720i and all the crazy, ridiculous stuff that she says. And they laugh at Habeck as well. Habeck is also a clown, and everyone's laughing. Everyone is laughing at these three bozos. But wow, Germany, the leadership of Germany, how they destroyed their country for Zelensky. You destroyed your country for Zelensky. Think about that for a second. Unbelievable. All those decades and decades of work to build up Germany into this economic power, and you throw it all away for a comedian that plays the piano with his penis. Incredible. Absolutely incredible when you think about it. What else? NATO also, Stoltenberg actually also said, get this, he said that Russia has a huge winter missile stockpile. Russia has amassed a large missile stockpile ahead of winter, and we see new attempts to strike Ukraine's power grid and energy infrastructure, trying to leave Ukraine in the dark and cold. Right. This is coming from the guy who for the past year and a half told us Russia is running out of weapons. Now, all of a sudden, never underestimate Russia, and Russia has a huge winter stockpile of weapons for the winter. Okay, Stoltenberg. From no weapons, washing machines and shovels to now Russia has huge stockpiles. Of course, the media is not talking about this at all. They're not saying, well, wait a minute. You told us Russia was running out of missiles. Just 6 months ago, just 2 months ago, you were telling us Russia has no more missiles. This is the last missile that Russia's going to fire. I remember all those stories. Russia has one more day of missiles left. Russia has one more hour of missiles left. Russia's down to their last missile. I remember all those stories. And now, huge stockpiles. Oh, boy. So, the grift, though, the grift that is Project Ukraine continues. It continues on. We had the head of the European Investment Bank. He was in Kiev talking reconstruction. And he's like, this guy, his name is Hoyer. He's meeting with the Zelensky regime, and he's saying, we have to speed up money to Ukraine. We have to speed up the reconstruction. We have to speed up the seizing of this 300 billion in Russian assets. What does that tell you? What does that tell you when you have guys, these bankers coming into Ukraine saying, let's get whatever last money we can get into Ukraine, let's get it in here. Let's get it in here so at least we can get the 300 billion and the 60 billion and the 50 billion, and at least we can walk away from Project Ukraine, all of us billionaires. And believe me, there are going to be many, many multi-millionaires and billionaires from Project Ukraine. There's going to be people that you've never heard of all of a sudden buying Chelsea or buying Liverpool or Manchester United or Real Madrid. Believe me. And smaller football clubs like Olympiacos or Panathinaikos or whatever in Greece. I'm just giving out some examples of football clubs. There are going to be people in the next couple of years who are going to just be multi-millionaires and billionaires, and you're not even going to know their name. But when you go into their bio, it's going to be something like, this guy used to be a lieutenant general for the Ukraine military, or this guy was a colonel for the Polish armed forces, right? And all of a sudden, or for NATO, and all of a sudden, he's buying Real Madrid, buying a stake in Real Madrid. We're gonna get stories like that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Believe me. Even the Financial Times, they ran with an article with the title, "The Crackdown on Ukraine's Oligarchs." And in this article from the Financial Times, they talk about how the old school oligarchs, right, the Poroshenkos and these guys, the Kolomoiskis, they're being phased out, and we're going to get a new class of oligarchs from the 200, 300, 500 billion that the collective West has pumped into Ukraine. And it's not only going to be Ukraine oligarchs, it'll be EU oligarchs, it'll be US oligarchs. We're going to get all kinds of millionaires and billionaires from this 300, 400 billion that's been pumped into Ukraine. The official number is something like 200 billion, but my rule of thumb is always just double that. Double it. If they say it's 200 billion, then you know that in the last year and a half, 2 years, they've invested 400 billion in Project Ukraine. And finally, before we get to my clown world, just seeing how we're doing on time here, Um, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the OSCE. Actually, Lavrov, he made an appearance at the OSCE. He was invited to appear at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and the Baltic states, they boycotted. The Zelensky regime, they boycotted, but Lavrov, he was his awesome self at the OSCE, and he told everyone in attendance. He said that the OSCE is on the brink of abyss. He really laid into them. In his address to the OSCE Ministerial Council in Skopje, North Macedonia, the minister lamented that after decades of work, the organization is now in a deplorable state and its prospects remain unclear. Lavrov noted that after the end of the Cold War, the OSCE was supposed to become an inclusive platform for creating a sustainable security architecture in Europe and promoting international cooperation. Unfortunately, Western political elites, arrogating to themselves the right to shape the future of mankind, made a short-sighted choice in favor of NATO, Lavrov said. The OSCE is essentially being turned into an appendix to NATO and the EU. The organization, let's face it, is on the brink of the abyss. Here is a simple question. Does it make sense to invest energy in its revival? Wow. That's all I have to say. Wow. So, the fact that Lavrov was invited to the OSCE tells you that there are leaders in the collective West that absolutely understand that they've lost this conflict in a big, big way. And Europe is outside of Ukraine. Europe is the big loser. I mean, Ukraine is going to be something much different than what we remember Ukraine to be. So we don't know what that's going to be. That's up to the Russian government and Putin to decide, and they're completely in control of that process. But Europe is the big loser, and you know that there are a lot of leaders in Europe. A lot. There are some leaders in Europe, like Peter Szijjártó from Hungary, the Austrian foreign minister as well, who actually I think talked to Lavrov on the sidelines. There are some people in Europe that I am sure pushed for Russia to go to this meeting because they want to speak to Lavrov on the sidelines. They probably want to tell Lavrov, look, Jungle Joseph, Paradise Leo, and Ursula von der Crazy. These people are they've Annalena 720i. They've lost their mind. They lost their mind. We lost. You won, Mr. Foreign Minister Lavrov. We admit it. You beat us. You beat NATO. You beat the European Union. Let's find an off-ramp. I'm positive that there are a couple of high-level officials, foreign ministers in Europe that understand this, and that is why Lavrov was there. That is why he was there, because they want to speak to him to see if there's any way they can find an off-ramp to this. So anyway, that was Lavrov's statement at the OSCE. Let's do a couple of clown worlds. A quick clown world is the Christmas tree at the White House, the national Christmas tree. It fell because of strong winds, from what I understand, but it just kind of tipped over. And yeah, that's the metaphor, I guess. The New York Times. Is this a real title from the New York Times? I have trouble believing that this is a real title from the NYT. The national Christmas tree fell over. Insert metaphor here. Does it symbolize President Biden's economic policies or the pressures of the season? I don't know if it symbolizes Biden's policies. I don't know about that. His economic policies falling down. I think it symbolizes the man, Biden. I mean, Biden tips over and the tree tips over. Oh boy. So we have that. And the final clown world is coming from Politico's lists, their top leaders list that they're putting out. And this is giving me a whole lot of clown worlds, this list. So yesterday, the clown world was, what was it? Dreamer of the Year. and Zelensky was number one, and Navalny was number two. It's really interesting how they're resurrecting Navalny. Huh? Isn't that interesting? The collective West is all of a sudden talking about Navalny out of the blue. They're talking about Navalny again. Navalny was given an award 2 weeks ago in Germany. I think it's called the, one second, it's called like the Bambi Awards or something like that. The Bimbo Awards, the Bambi Awards, I don't know what it's called. In Munich, the Bambi Prize. The Bambi Prize in Germany, Germany's oldest media award. And the figurine in the form of a deer was presented by the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. And Navalny's wife received the award for her husband. So isn't it interesting over the past couple of weeks that all of a sudden the collective West has suddenly decided to revive the story of Navalny, the man of Navalny. To me, that indicates that Zelensky's on his way out, and they have to revert back to Navalny as Putin's arch enemy, as the good guy to Putin's evil. The white hat and the what is it in the West? There's the white hat and the black hat, right? Like a Western. So there was a point in time when Zelensky was the white hat, and now that Zelensky's on his way out, the collective West, they have to find the new white hat, because Putin always has to have a foil. He always has to have someone that is opposing him, you know, someone that he's doing evil on. You always have to find a person and project everything on that person. So it was Zelensky, but now Zelensky, you know, he's... and so they revert back to Navalny. I think that's what's going on here. So bad news if you're Zelensky. If you're Zelensky and you see Navalny starting to get attention, you're probably like, hey, what's going on here? Who's this Navalny guy? Why people are talking about Navalny? Why Navalny get Bambi Award? I should get Bambi Award and a new home. But yeah, so what was I saying? What was I saying? Yeah, Politico. Politico had Zelensky as daydreamer number one and Navalny as daydreamer number two. Well, we have another list from Politico, and this is the straight talkers, the disruptors. I think this is the disruptors, like the top 30 disruptors. And at number 4, disruptor number 4, Annalena Baerbock, the straight talker, disruptor number 4, Germany. I love it. Oh, Politico, you're giving me so many clown worlds. This is what Politico says, the first paragraph. 2 years ago, Annalena Baerbock botched her bid to become German chancellor. With another election due in 2025, the Green politician looks set for a do-over. Last time around, Baerbock was a relative newcomer with no previous governmental experience, and it showed. As foreign minister, she has since built a reputation as a straight talker with serious political nous. Nous, N-O-U-S. You know what that word is in Greek? In the Greek language, it's like intellect. She's built a reputation as a straight talker with political intellect. They're using the Greek word for Annalena Baerbock. Oh, man. I don't even need to comment on these clown worlds. That's why I love them so much. Politico does all the heavy lifting for these clown worlds. Oh, boy, I think I will end it there. Annalena, the straight talker. She's built up a reputation, all right. She has built up a reputation. Annalena 360, Annalena 560, Annalena 720i. And can you imagine Chancellor Annalena Baerbock? She's set to do a do-over, according to Politico, to become chancellor. Boy, oh boy. If you think Germany's in a bad shape now, I couldn't even imagine what a Chancellor Baerbock would do to Germany. I can't even fathom. I can't even comprehend the amount of devastation and destruction from Annalena as a German chancellor. I just can't even picture it. Anyway, the Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop, 20% off. Use the code. I'm wearing a long sleeve with the flag of Austria today. Use the code TheDuran20. Take care.